Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. Welcome to the first ever Elf Ball. This week, I'm accompanied by Grand Warlord Radha, who's wearing a spicy red and green number. Sure, it might remind you of Christmas, but I guarantee the only thing she's bringing this year is pain. My opener had a Mountain, Growing Rites of Itlimoc, Farhaven Elf, Soul of the Harvest, Forest, Command Tower, and Reclamation Sage. Matt and Ezuri are wearing the latest blue and green styles from Phyrexia, and he keeps the ever-popular Elvish Harbinger, Forest, Island, Sylvan Library, Kadama's Reach, and Panharmonicon. Sean and Nath are in some black with highlights of green, with Command Tower, Prowess of the Fair, Nissa Vastwood Seer, Blooming Marsh, Blighted Woodland, Decree of Pain, and Unnerve. Trevor and Freyalise are making a bold statement, only wearing green, which is very traditional and very stylish of elves. He keeps a hand with Cavern of Souls, Kadama's Reach, 2 Forests, Grave Sifter, and Oracle of Moldiah. Sean wins the die roll and starts us off. Sean plays an untapped Blooming Marsh, passing. I play a Forest, and I pass to Matt. Matt plays a tapped Temple of Mystery. He scries the top card and puts it on the bottom. Trevor plays a Forest and passes. Sean plays a Command Tower and casts Well-Wisher. I also play Command Tower and I cast Rampant Growth. I grab a Mountain and I pass to Matt. Matt plays a Forest and casts Sylvan Library. Trevor plays a Forest as well, passing turn. Sean plays an Unclaimed Territory, naming Elves, and casts Nissa Vastwood Seer. He grabs a Forest and puts it to his hand. I draw and I play a Mountain, casting Farhaven Elf and going to find a Forest. Matt uses his library trigger, but doesn't keep any extra cards. He plays an Island and casts Kadama's Reach. Trevor plays a Forest and casts Elvish Archdruid. At the end of turn, Sean taps the Well-Wisher, gaining 4 life. Sean plays a Blighted Woodland, paying 4 to cast a Raider's Wake. Moving to combat, Sean swings Nissa at Trevor, who doesn't want to lose his Archdruid and just takes the hit. At the end of Sean's turn, Sean uses the Wake's Raid trigger to make Matt discard a card, and Matt loses 2 life. I draw for turn and cast Grand Warlord Radha. If there were points for casting their general first, I'd be winning. Moving to combat, I swing my Farhaven and Radha at Sean, choosing green mana from the Radha trigger, and Sean taps his Well-Wisher to gain 5 life, then takes 4 damage, 3 of which is Commander. In my second main phase, I use the Radha mana to help cast Reclamation Sage, blowing up the Raider's Wake. Matt takes 4 from his library trigger to keep an extra card. He drops an Island and casts Ezuri, then a Heritage Druid. The Heritage Druid gives Matt an experience counter, and moving to combat, he puts a +1/+1 counter on the Heritage Druid before passing to Trevor. Trevor plays a Cavern of Souls, naming Elves. He then casts an Oracle of Moldiah and reveals Kindred Discovery off the top. He passes to Sean. Sean plays a Forest and casts Golgari Signet. He then casts Prowess of the Fair and passes turn. I play a Wirewood Lodge as my land for turn, and head to combat. I put all of my elves in Sean's direction, as he's gaining exponentially more life it seems as the game goes on. I float 3 green mana, and Sean taps his Well-Wisher to gain 10 life before blocking the Farhaven Elf with Nissa. Sean then takes 5, 3 from Radha, and 2 from the Reclamation Sage. In my second main phase, I pay 6 to cast Soul of the Harvest, and then use 3 floating mana from Radha to cast Fierce Empath. I draw from the Soul, and I then search for a 6+ creature. I find a Savage Ventmaw, and I pass to Matt. Matt takes another 4, keeping an extra card. He plays a Colony Garden, gaining a 0/1 plant and another experience counter. Matt's the first to find his Priest of Titania, becoming public enemy number 1, as it hits the field and gives him another experience counter. Matt then taps 3 of his elves with the Heritage Druid ability to float 3 green mana, and taps 1 land to cast Panharmonicon. Moving to combat, Matt puts his +1/+1 counters on the Priest and passes to Trevor. Trevor casts a Kadama's Reach, finding a Forest to the field and a Forest to his hand. Trevor then shuffles and reveals Heroic Intervention off the top. Trevor casts a Rishkar Pima Renegade, putting a +1/+1 counter on Rishkar and his Oracle. Sean casts a Waste Knot and then follows up with an Unnerve. Sean gets 2 zombies, 2 black mana, and draws 2 cards from the cards we discard, and Trevor's Freyalise is pretty upset when Matt has to bin his. Sean then drops a Forest, and he casts a Wolfskull Shaman. I play a Mountain for my turn and swing everything at Sean, gaining 2 red and 2 green. Sean puts 1 zombie in front of Radha and 1 in front of the Reclamation Sage. Sean then takes 7, and in my second main phase, using my 4 floating mana, I tap 6 lands and cast Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, who's kind of like an elf. I target the Waste Knot and the Panharmonicon with the on-cast trigger. I then draw from the Soul trigger, and I pass my turn. Matt uses his library, not taking an extra card. Matt then casts a Wirewood Symbiote, gaining another experience counter. He then taps his Priest of Titania for a staggering 12 green mana and casts a Champion of the Lambhold. He gains another experience counter, and moving to combat, Matt puts his Ezuri trigger on the champion, giving it 5+1/+1 counters. He then passes to Trevor. Trevor draws and reveals an elf off the top. He casts Freyalise, uptaking her to get an elf token. He passes to Sean. Sean taps his Well-Wisher at the end of turn, and counts up the board, gaining 13 life. Sean plays a Swamp, which is his 7th land, and he flips Nissa. He uses her +1 ability and reveals Putrefy, putting it to his hand. Sean then casts Nath, and passes to me. I play a Forest for my turn, and pay 3 to cast Growing Rites of Itlamok. I reveal Magus of the Wheel, and I put it to my hand. I'm very concerned by Matt's champion making his stuff basically impossible to block, so I swing my board at him, gaining 2 red and 2 green mana. I also get to exile the top 20 cards of Matt's library thanks to Ulamog's on-attack trigger. I get some goodies, and Matt blocks Ulamog and the Fierce Empath, and then takes 9. In my second main phase, I use my floating mana to cast the Magus, drawing a card from the Soul, and then cast Savage Ventmaw, drawing once more. At the end of my turn, Growing Rites flips to reveal Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Matt doesn't take any extra cards, and plays a Jiraga Treespeaker, gaining an experience counter. Matt then taps his Priest for 12 green mana, and he levels up his Treespeaker to level 5. Moving to combat, Matt puts 6 counters on the champion, and swings it at me for 12. At the end of Matt's turn, Trevor casts Kindred Summons. He gets to reveal from his library, and puts the first 4 elves he finds onto the field. We see a Lissalana Huntsmaster, an Elvish Visionary, Ezuri Renegade Leader, and a Farhaven Elf. He grabs the basic first because he has his library in hand, and then draws from Visionary, drawing a Nissa Vital Force. This reveals a Craterhoof Behemoth off the top, and Trevor draws it for turn. This also reveals a Forest, which he plays in his main phase, revealing an Arbor Elf. Trevor then upticks Freyalise to make another Elf token, and attempts to cast Craterhoof, which Matt has no counter for. With Craterhoof on the stack though, Sean putrefies Ezuri, and Sean taps his Well-Wisher to gain some life. Trevor responds to the spell on the stack by tapping his Archdruid, and gets 9 green mana. He casts Heroic Intervention with some of that mana. I respond to that by tapping my Itlamok to cycle Tranquil Thicket, hopefully finding a beast within. I do not. While this is all going on, Trevor then uses Ezuri's Elf-only Overrun ability once, and pumps all of his elves by +3/+3, which, once the Craterhoof hits the field, brings up their total power by 14. Trevor breaks out a pen and paper to math it out, and decides to kill Matt and I. Matt decides to spite Trevor on his way out, and uses the Wirewood Symbiote to bounce his Priest of Titania and untaps Sean's Well-Wisher. Sean then taps the Well-Wisher again, and gains another 16 life. As I am now dead, I reveal the Hellkite Charger in my hand with a Heroic Intervention backup that I'd planned on using my next turn. Sean uses his Wolfskull Shaman trigger, and reveals Elvish Harbinger, and gets a 2/2 Wolf token. Sean has the Nath trigger go on Trevor, and Trevor discards a card, gaining Sean an Elf token. Sean then taps the Well-Wisher to gain 14 life, and swings Nath and the Wolfskull Shaman at Trevor for 6. In his second main phase, he casts Decree of Pain, and wipes the board away, drawing 14 cards, and gets 2 Elf token triggers from the Prowess of the Fair. Sean then downticks Nissa to get an Aisha token, and plays a Bayou. He then discards down to 7, and passes to Trevor. Trevor draws for turn, and casts an Arbor Elf. He then upticks Freyalise, and makes another Elf token before passing. Sean plays a Forest, and upticks Nissa, revealing Eyeblight's Ending, which is probably the worst removal for this game. Sean then recasts Nath, and casts an Arterial Flow, targeting Trevor that is already hellbent at this point with no hand. Sean then swings 6 into Trevor, and passes turn. Trevor uses Freyalise's ult to draw 2 cards, and cast a Heritage Druid. He then casts a Regal Force, drawing 4 cards. Trevor then plays a Forest, and taps 3 elves with Heritage Druid to cast Hall of Gemstones. Sean names black on his upkeep, and puts the Nath trigger on Trevor, who discards a card, and Sean gains another Elf Warrior token. Sean then casts Liliana's Caress, and Megrim, and upticks Nissa to draw and reveal Siphon Mind. Sean casts it, and Trevor discards Fresh Meat, taking 4 damage, and Sean draws a card. Sean then skips through his combat step, and passes turn. Trevor draws and names Green. He then casts an Ezuri's Predation, gaining 6 4/4 beast tokens, who fight Sean's creatures. 2 of the beasts trade with Nath and the Nissa token, and the rest slaughter Sean's little elf warriors. Trevor then upticks Freyalise to make another token, and taps 3 elves with a Heritage Druid to make 3 mana, paying 1 more to cast Natural Order, sacrificing the new elf token from Freyalise. He tutors for Terastodon, who blows up Nissa, the Caress, and Megrim, and Trevor then passes. Sean names Green while Trevor hands out the elephant tokens. He casts Rain of Thorns, blowing up Trevor's Hall of Gemstones and that specific forest. Trevor draws for turn and casts a Guy's Herald and upticks Freyalise before passing turn. At the end of turn, Sean uses Eyeblight's Ending to kill the Terastodon. Sean casts Read the Bones on his turn, losing 2 life and scrying the top 2 cards, putting them on the bottom and drawing 2 more. Sean then casts more Draw with Night's Whisper and drawing 2 and takes 2. He then drops a Deathrite Shaman and casts an Elixir of Immortality. Moving to combat, he swings his elephants at Trevor, forgetting about the beasts, who eat up the elephants in no time flat. Trevor ultimates Freyalise again after drawing for turn and draws 9 cards. He casts a Fierce Empath and goes to find a Thunderfoot Baloth. He then casts an Elvish Mystic and taps 3 elves with a Heritage Druid and 2 lands to cast Shamanic Revelation. He draws a further 11 cards and gains 20 life. Trevor then drops a forest and taps it to cast a Foily Crop Rotation. He sacrifices the same forest and goes to find his Guy's Cradle. Moving to combat, he swings his beasts and the Regal Force at Sean for 21 damage, and Sean decides to just take the hit. Trevor moves to his discard step, and Sean cracks the Elixir, gaining another 5 life and shuffling his graveyard into his library. Sean casts a Guest Grimoire in his main phase, and then casts Siphon Mine again, which he must have just drawn. He draws 2 cards, one from the spell and one from the Grimoire, while Trevor discards a card. Sean then casts his own Ezuri and passes. At the end of turn, Trevor taps his Cradle and any remaining elf to cast Court of Calling where X is huge. He grabs a Siege Behemoth and dumps it onto the field. Trevor upticks Freyalise and he casts a Beastmaster Ascension. He taps the Cradle for a ton of green mana and uses some of it to cast a Thunderfoot Baloth, an Elvish Champion, and finally an Overwhelming Stampede. This gives everything +9/+9, and this is before the Ascension is even active, and Trevor moves to combat, swinging everything at Sean for lethal, becoming the best dressed elf at the Elf Ball. Game review time. So I hope everyone enjoyed this little themed game. I had a lot of fun filming it, and the guys in New Jersey had a lot of fun getting ready for it. We had originally considered of doing a star game where someone would play Reese or Rice or however you pronounce him, the green and white one, but nobody really wanted to play a 5-player game of EDH as we would probably still be playing this very game to this day. Radha proved to be an interesting commander, and I'm actually going to convert my deck into more of an elf ball focus. I was impressed with the amount of ramp that she brings to the deck, and it could actually be pretty cool to run a card like Winter Orb or Static Orb to slow down people's lands, and I would be left remaining with a bunch of mana. Matt's Ezuri deck unfortunately didn't have a lot of interaction, and I did manage to hit a lot of his good cards like Cyclonic Rift with my Ulamog trigger. What I like about Ezuri is that if you're able to get him out early enough and get enough experience counters on him quickly enough, even low drops late in the game can become huge beaters and huge threats later on. I really enjoyed the way that Sean built Nath, as it was more of a control-based deck, whereas I and Matt were playing more aggro-based. Of the 4 decks, Nath was in the best position to basically control the game, but unfortunately when Trevor took Matt and I out, Sean wasn't able to get as much value from his mass discard spells as he would have if we were still alive. And lastly we get to Freyalise, who is a consistent draw engine in mono green in your command zone, which is just fantastic. All of her abilities are almost always relevant, since you're either increasing your board state for that huge Craterhoof behemoth, destroying a valuable enchantment or artifact, or drawing cards. There were 2 back-to-back turns where Trevor was drawing at least 5 cards thanks to either Regal Force, Freyalise, or Shamanic Revelations, and I think that really helped him get back in the game and seal the win in the end. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta, and lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.